rule exists because of you. Story 1. Not really a rule, more like just a sign. I once got drunk at my favorite pub, slipped in a puddle in the bathroom, and took the sink down with me. After it was repaired, there was a shiny new no diving sign above the sink. Opinion. It's good to see a sense of humor in one of these. Story 2. When I was in high school, I accidentally lit a girl's hair on fire during our National Honor Society induction ceremony. We had to carry candles throughout the whole event, and after about 30 minutes, I tilted my candle a little too far forward without noticing. I've never felt so embarrassed or guilty, but luckily only a small part of her hair burned. Anyway, my younger sister told me 2 years later that at her ceremony they had to use electric candles because years ago a girl's hair had caught fire. Oops. Opinion. Today I learned that electric candles are a thing. Story 3. The school I attended from 3rd to 6th grade enacted a no gangs rule because of a club I started. My best friend and I made it up. We called ourselves the Midgets. We walked around our knees up our shirts and propelled ourselves forward with our hands like apes. There were initiation tests for recruits to get in, like crossing the monkey bars without your legs slipping out of your shirt. Another test was getting your swing moving high and jumping off without your legs slipping out of your shirt. When my friend and I ran it, it was pretty harmless, and we all just played games and stuff. I learned years later that after I went to middle school, the kids who took it over became bullies. They would trip people in the halls and were generally ruffians. The principal confiscated the rule book I had written up with the different tests to rank up and forbade all gang-like activity on campus. Opinion. Sounds like how politics work. Story 4. Security guards aren't allowed to use the Citizens Bank microwave in the Citizens Bank office break room. I made a huge uh-oh that led up to this, gents. I got my dinner from the refrigerator and went to heat it up in the microwave. And that's it. They saw it on camera and decided that it was a crime. I had full access to use the room to eat and get candy and soda from the machines. But the microwave? Out of the question. Edit. It was grilled chicken. I don't eat fish. Fish sucks. Opinion. Sounds like someone higher up didn't feel like they had enough power. Story 5. A math teacher at my high school used Khan Academy for homework, and we used to be graded by how much time we spent on it per week. The rules changed when I had about 120 hours logged in constantly per week, because I just went AFK, and they switched it to grading based on topics mastered. Opinion. Time spent was a poor metric to begin with. Some people grasp things quickly and won't need to spend much time, while others may take much longer and still not fully understand. Story 6. Rule number 1. Your monthly motivational speech to the team at work must contain actual spoken words. Rule number 2. Your monthly motivational speech to the team at work may not contain not safe for work pictures. Edit. Rule number 2 was created a couple of months after rule number 1, following my second monthly motivational speech. Opinion. If the boss includes not safe for work pictures in their speech, is it still considered not safe for work? Story 7. Not me, but thanks to my sister and my mom, my high school introduced in-school suspension, ISS. My sister was caught skipping school, so they were going to suspend her. My mom was furious and forced the school to keep her there, saying, "Why would you punish being out of school by making her miss more school?" And thus ISS was born. Opinion. That's actually a good idea. Story 8. For the first 3 years of high school, I sold brownies in class for 50 cents each. At first, it was because I wasn't old enough to get a job, and then it was because I didn't want to get a job. I tried to keep it low-key, so they wouldn't shut me down. But by the start of my senior year, There was a new section in the school handbook that explicitly forbade selling things in class. Opinion. I bet they were angry because you were depriving the cafeteria of sales. Story 9. This wasn't just me alone, but a group effort. In my senior year of high school, 98, our class trip was a cruise to the Bahamas. Before we set sail, we found out that once we left US waters, we were considered of full age of majority and were allowed to drink and hit the casinos. Of course, we had been drilled with the idea that since this was technically a school function, school rules applied, so no drinking, smoking, gambling. Yeah, right. We lost our effing minds. We drank ourselves silly on the boat, drank ourselves even sillier once we hit various ports, gambled, smoked, and did all sorts of things. A few of us even got video of some of our deeds. Once everyone started getting into it, the chaperones didn't even try to stop us. As a result of our shenanigans, the school banned out of country class trips to avoid any repeats. A few years' worth of underclassmen were royally angry at us. Opinion. What kind of high school goes on a cruise to the Bahamas? The coolest place mine went was to a rundown movie theater. Story 10. My high school was pretty small, so graduating students got to pick a member of the staff to make a speech and introduce us before we went up to the stage. The teacher I chose made a really epic speech with a lot of Lord of the Rings references, and at the end, he presented me with a replica necklace of the One Ring. Apparently, at the staff meeting before next year's graduation ceremony, the principal made a point to tell everyone that gifts and 10-minute speeches weren't allowed. I'm pretty okay knowing that I'm the first and last student to have that privilege, to be honest. Opinion. Just because the bad teachers couldn't be bothered, they make a rule to lower the standard. That really sums up the education system to me, or any workplace for that matter. Story 11. Not me, but a classmate. One of the guys on my speech and debate team was pretty buff. At tournaments in our state, the required dress code was business professional for competitors and school team shirts for others. This dude would always wear a team shirt under his suit so he could relax outside of rounds. At the beginning of the year, he would take leftover shirts from the previous year and wear them to the tournaments. After taking off his suit and jacket, he would always stare through these shirts, Hulk style, to show off his body. The tournament coordinators weren't too happy, so they asked our coach to make him stop. Our coach thought it was hilarious, so he didn't make the dude stop. The next year, included in most tournament rules, was a detailed clause defining and prohibiting stripping. It's hilarious to see the novices read the rules and come across the clause with a look of pure confusion. Opinion. It's funny to think about the kind of things the new students might have imagined were the cause for that rule to be created. After all, every rule only exists because there was some kind of problem related to it. Story 12. Everyone in my department has to work an extra half hour. We would usually work 8-hour shifts, but I would always leave half an hour early and classify it as my lunch break. My logic was that as long as I took my lunch, who cares when during my shift it was? Management caught on after a few months, and now we all work an extra 30 minutes to compensate for lunch. Opinion. Yeah. Most 8-hour jobs I've had that clock our lunchtime set limits on when we can take it, or make us clear it with managers. This sounds like a terrible solution. Story 13. Just after I graduated high school, a few friends and I flew to England for a week. We stayed in a small town with my buddy's grandma. Conveniently, she lived across the street from a pub, which, aside from the post office and the train station, was the only thing to do in town. We made friends pretty quickly, and were astonished to find out they hadn't heard of beer pong. After a few nights of playing, It was banned when a handful of regulars got picked up for drunk driving, so I guess the rule wasn't explicitly because of us, but if we hadn't shown up, it probably wouldn't have been in place for a few more years. Opinion. Beer pong isn't as much of a thing in my country as far as I know. Never played it myself. Story 14. I did an exchange in Turkey recently, and during my first week of school there, I realized that I would never learn anything because of the language barrier. My program forbade me from ditching school though. Then, in February, there was a self-deletion attack on my route to school, and I used it as an excuse to not go to school anymore. They didn't like that. Opinion. Jesus Christ. Story 15. Freshman year of high school in Jersey. We were allowed to leave campus for lunch and go get something to eat. We had to walk through this neighborhood to get to the pizza place where we'd grab lunch. On the walk back, idiot me was bet by my friends that I wouldn't smash a pumpkin on some neighbor's lawn. So I did. A guy across the street saw and screamed for me to stop. I just ran. Somehow I got back to the school without them catching me. The next morning, during the morning announcements, the principal was talking about how we couldn't walk through that neighborhood anymore during lunch. Now, it wasn't completely because of me, but I'm sure I was the straw that broke the camel's back. Opinion. Is banning people from walking in a public place even legal? Story 16. When I was in kindergarten, they'd let everyone out in a big huddle, while the teachers sort of overlooked everything. One day my mom was late, so I tried to walk home alone. I walked a block or two, thinking I had walked an endless journey, and then I got lost. I sat and cried until someone took me back to the school, where my mom and teacher were waiting. After that, teachers had to let out the kids only as their parents approached them. Opinion. Good. I can't believe they never checked who left with whom. Anyone could have taken a kid. Story 17. There is such a thing as a dumb question, and you're not allowed to ask them. Freshman year in geometry class, the teacher told us to ask questions, saying there was no such thing as a dumb one. I raised my hand and blurted out the first thing that came to mind. What would you do if you were eating Skittles and they turned into a puppy? Years later, a freshman at my lunch table was telling me about the rule, unaware that I was the reason it existed. Opinion. I guess we had the same rule, but it was unwritten. The teachers would simply ignore your question if they deemed it too dumb. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate the bell button to receive notifications to my latest videos.